Hello and welcome to the Make Knowledge Pill series. Today we are going to talk about the Critical Making project and how we're exploring the potential of the maker movement for a better world. I am Barbara Kieslinger, and together with my colleague Teresa Schäfer from the Center for Social Innovation, we're going to talk you through the Critical Making project. What is critical making? In critical making, it's a research project where we're studying the power of inclusion and openness of the maker movement. So we are looking into the potential of the maker movement for critical and socially responsible making and looking for new opportunities for young talents of all genders to contribute to an open society via open source innovation. Who are we? We are a small consortium of 5 European institutions coming from research and maker practice. Plus, we have a group of very active global co-researchers who are makers who contribute to the project from the onset to shape it and work with us throughout the research process. Critical making was not really invented by us. It has a history. The term was coined by Ratto and Hertz, who were applying this practice to critically reflect on the predominant market-oriented maker practices and the Americanization of making, and they applied it for their engineering and arts studies. And later on, it was taken up by GEEG members to apply it to grassroots innovations in the global south. And this is where critical making has been mostly inspired. We defined some core values for critical making, which are openness and the willingness to share, acting locally and connected, locally in making and globally in connecting and sharing, being social and diverse and taking care of including all different kinds of target groups, be reflexive in what you're doing, impactful, so make things that have an impact and are sustainable, but we don't want to take away the joy, so be also joyful and meaningful in your making. As said, we have a very participatory research approach. So together with the global makers, from the onset, we worked together in designing and defining our project objectives, where we want to go, how we want to assess that. And this is a continuous participatory process of co-design and co-reflection. We apply this also to 3 different areas. One of them is the gender aspect, where we look into gender inclusive maker practices. We look into educational aspects of how to make and train young talents with critical maker skills. And we look into openness towards sharing open hardware. And Teresa is going to talk more about those areas now.
So our first project focus was on the aspect of gender inclusiveness. We started our work with an investigation of existing projects and initiatives that foster gender inclusivity in making. We found many of them around the globe and analyzed several of them in more detail. Then we started to co-create gender-specific measures together with representatives of the maker community. And we had identified 3 areas: co-creating dissemination material on gender-inclusive making, elaborating new formats for caretaker-inclusive making, and workshops that support women in local communities to engage in making. For instance, we created inspirational stories of amazing makers around the globe who made it into making and were not part of the mainstream maker group, and guidelines on how to create an inclusive and welcoming makerspace, which might act as a source of inspiration for makerspaces to think about inclusiveness. We worked on workshop formats where kids from social housing in Vienna created mud batteries, where women in Cameroon were trained in using 3D printers, laser cutters, or creating liquid soap, and mothers, non-binary persons, and children in Indonesia produced innovative projects out of everyday objects. The second project focus was on involving young people in critical making. So we wanted to support paving the way for the next generation of critical makers. This work started with an investigation of the context again. We organized critical making workshops as part of mobile Fab Lab meetups in Germany, where we started to discuss the role of educators when it comes to involving children in making. And one main outcome was the need for best practice examples and guidelines. So we collected best practice and inspiration of makers and educators from around the globe on how they involved young talents in making. We had insights from Brazil, Colombia, Germany, Palestine, Singapore, just to name a few. And based on this work, we developed a critical making educational toolbox with the best practice examples, educational guidelines, a critical making manifesto, and hands-on activities of making, like the small torch you would see in the picture.
And then we also explored the topic of openness and how openness is actually lived and practiced in the maker community, which resulted in the publication, How Open is the Maker Movement? And next to that, then we started to co-design the Critical Making Open Hardware Mentoring Program. This mentoring program, which is still running, received 33 applications, and we selected 18 for interviews, who would then receive video lectures and tasks and check-ins. They will have special workshops. We have a demo week coming up early March. We have online spaces for questions, and we use also our own critical making self-reflection tools with the group. Our teachers or mentors for the 5-month 5-topic program are all successful founders of makerspaces and innovation hubs in the Global South. And the series then can later be watched as well. And here is just one example of one of our many tools. This is the critical making reflection tool, which can be applied as a board game and can help you getting into reflexive questions on how much you feel you are a critical and responsible maker. But we do have more tools. We do have more results coming out. We will have guidelines for teacher education, guidelines on how to make makerspaces more inclusive. We will have the manifesto to print out. We're working on a scene and various other tools and materials that we will all make available to the community. So check out our Critical Making website and visit also our Wikifactory space, where you also see all the projects documented. Thank you very much.